have to ask Aaliyah that question. I honestly, you just do your work. You got to do your work early and make it different. But Aaliyah did say I had a special whistle. She shot 13 today. Yeah, she said the last game I had a special whistle, which is cool.
Well, the excuses came quicker than missed free throws. Aya Wilson and Becky Hammon couldn't stomach losing to the Indiana Fever, so they aimed straight at the referees. According to them, the whistles were rigged, the game stolen. Forget Aaliyah Boston bullying the paint. Forget Kelsey Mitchell dropping buckets. None of that mattered, at least in their story. But let's keep it real. Everyone with two eyes saw the truth. Indiana didn't just survive the defending champion Las Vegas Aces. They beat them. Clean. With size, with aggression, with hustle, with pure heart. No flukes, no miracles, just better basketball. Yet if you listen to Wilson and Hammond, the only reason Vegas fell is because the refs were secretly cashing Fever checks.
Face while you're looking at that box score, I'm wondering what's really standing out to you there.
I was just looking at the fouls. Like Liz had 5, Jackie had 5, Chelsea had 5. And that's very interesting to me because I'm not saying we don't foul. Yeah, we foul here and there, but that's very interesting.
And this is where the irony hits. Coming from a Wilson, it's almost too much. A player who practically sets up camp at the free throw line. Aya's been riding the wave of favorable whistles all year long. Step in the paint, breathe, too heavy, and she's heading to the stripe. But the second the calls don't swing her way, suddenly she's the victim. She's crying foul. Literally. You couldn't script it better. So let's break it down. Fever, 34 free throws. Aces, just 11. That's the number Becky Hammond waved around at the podium, clutching it like the smoking gun. Like proof the refs robbed them, not that they lost. But here's the truth. Indiana earned every single trip. Aaliyah Boston bullied her way into the paint over and over, straight into AA's chest, forcing contact and daring the whistle. That's not luck, that's power basketball. That's what earning calls looks like. And last I checked, if you don't want the foul, don't swipe down and hack in the post.
It looked like they really were intentional about going to Aaliyah in the second half. What was, I guess, difficult about containing her? I know you guys kind of touched on a few things, maybe with the foul calls, but what made it successful for them to keep running her tonight?
I don't know, you might have to ask Aaliyah that question. I honestly, you just do your work. You gotta do your work early and make it different. But Aaliyah did say I had a special whistle. She shot 13 today.
She said that to you?
Yeah. Yeah, she said the last game I had a special whistle, which is cool. So we just gotta play their better defense, make her look a little difficult, and kind of go.
But apparently to AA Wilson, Aaliyah Boston didn't just play tough. She got blessed with some kind of magical whistle. AA actually claimed after the game that Boston admitted she has won, which, let's just pause right there. That's not real. Nobody in this league gets a golden whistle that follows them city to city. Boston got those calls for one reason. She attacked. Period. Meanwhile, AA spent half her possessions fading away on jumpers and mid-range shots. News flash. Refs don't send you to the line for jump shots. And let's not overlook, this is the same AA Wilson who's piled up more free throws than half the league for years. The same AA that Fever fans constantly gripe about because she gets bailed out if someone barely brushes her jersey. But now, suddenly she's the victim? Please. That's like the teacher's pet who's been showered with free candy all semester, throwing a fit the one day the teacher forgets Skittles. Cry me a river.
What? Oh my God, that's interesting. That's what I was looking for. I'm gonna do better. We gotta play better defense.
I'm interested. You mean that shit?
Yeah, I can't say that because I got a brain to protect. But
You say it, I have no brain.
yeah, it's interesting. But we'll be better.
Now, Becky Hammond wasn't much better. She strolled into that press conference with the smugness dialed to max and dropped her so-called Mike moment. 34-11. Next question. That was it. That was the grand analysis. Forget game strategy. Forget adjustments. Forget the fact Boston and Mitchell straight up outplayed her stars. Nope, it all came down to the refs. If that's really the coaching philosophy, then the Aces might want to rethink the game plan. Because last I checked, pointing fingers at whistles has never hung a championship banner.
Coach, how much Liz foul trouble impacted you on the rotation and her impact on the defensive end?
Yeah, I mean, it hurts us. We need to be able to play Liz heavy minutes. She's been an impactful player in this series. I gotta go back and look at the tape, but it seemed like there was a lot of grabbing and holding down there. That got called one way.
Anything else?
I did appreciate it was a little tighter called, but tighter on.
The wildest part, Becky actually tried spinning it like the game was officiated differently than the rest of the series. You don't say. Maybe that's because Indiana finally stopped settling for jumpers and started pounding the paint. Maybe it's because Aaliyah Boston finally looked every bit like the #1 pick she was meant to be. Just a thought. And let's not pretend Vegas was playing squeaky clean basketball either. Jackie Young had 5 fouls. Chelsea Gray had 5 fouls. Liz Cambage, oh wait, she's not even in the league anymore. Scratch that, but you get the picture. Vegas was hacking left and right, and the refs called it. They didn't swallow the whistle. They didn't rig anything. They just did their job. Meanwhile, Fever fans are laughing because for months they've had to hear that Caitlin Clark is the only reason Indiana wins. Well, guess what? Caitlin's been sidelined, and Aaliyah Boston has stepped directly into that superstar role. She went head-to-head with A.J. Wilson and outplayed her. That's not refs. That's reality. Boston bullied her way to 24 points and 14 boards. That's dominance, not favoritism. Kelsey Mitchell dropped 25, hit clutch shots, and flat-out outshined Jackie Young. Again, not refs, just buckets. Odyssey Sims cooked off the bench, crossing defenders out of their shoes. Still not refs, just basketball. The Fever had the sharper game plan, executed better, and flat out wanted it more. But no, if you listen to Aya and Becky, the whole script was written by corrupt officials. It's almost laughable. The Aces lose, and suddenly the referees are villains. But when the Aces win off questionable whistles in other series, not a word, pure silence. That's the hypocrisy staring us in the face. Vegas has been living off whistles for years. Becky Hammond herself has praised referees when the breaks fell her way. But the instant the scales tilt toward Indiana, suddenly it's a grand conspiracy. Let's call it straight deflection. The Aces don't want to admit they got outworked. They don't want to admit Aaliyah Boston bullied their front court. They don't want to admit Kelsey Mitchell torched their guards. They don't want to admit their bench gave them almost nothing. So instead of accountability, they point to the zebras and cry cheating. It's lazy. It's weak. And honestly, it's embarrassing for a franchise that prides itself on being the standard. But this isn't new. Coaches blaming refs goes back as long as the sport itself. It's the easiest scapegoat in the book. Because if you say, we lost because they played better, you're admitting something has to change. If you say, we lost because the refs were crooked, boom, no adjustments needed. Just run it back and pray the whistle flips next time. It's excuse-making 101. Now, here's the funny part. Aces fans are actually buying into it. Twitter's been flooded with posts crying about how the league wants Caitlin Clark in the finals for ratings. As if referees are secretly working for Adam Silver, rigging games on command for Indiana. Please, if the WNBA were truly rigging results, don't you think they'd choose Vegas? The reigning champs with Aya Wilson, Chelsea Gray, and Jackie Young back under the lights. That's a safer ratings bet than Indiana, who just clawed out of the basement last year. The whole conspiracy doesn't even add up. And let's not forget, this is Caitlin Clark's second season. She's not some rookie anymore. That tired narrative about the league manufacturing her success, she's already proven herself. The Fever have proven themselves. And Aaliyah Boston just showed she's every bit the star Indiana drafted her to be. If the Aces can't deal with that, that's on them. Let's zoom back in on that free throw stat one last time, because that's the hill Becky and AA want to die on. Indiana 34, Vegas 11. Ugly on paper, sure. But look closer. Indiana attacked the rim without fear. Vegas settled for jumpers. That's the difference. That's not corruption. That's basketball 101. Attack and you get rewarded. Play passive and you don't. It really is that simple. And here's the kicker. The Aces still had chances to win. Even with the free throw gap, they were right there late, but they bricked shots, coughed up turnovers, and crumbled in crunch time. That's on them. Not the refs. Not the league. Just them. So yeah, Aya Wilson and Becky Hammond lit up the refs in their post-game rants. But the truth, the only people they exposed were themselves. They exposed their own insecurity. They exposed their lack of accountability. And they exposed how afraid they are of the Indiana Fever. Because deep down, they know this isn't the same old Fever. This team isn't backing down anymore. And here's where we dig even deeper. Because that Vegas meltdown wasn't just a couple salty quotes. It was a full-blown attempt to rewrite what everyone actually watched. The box score doesn't lie. Aaliyah Boston dominated the paint. Kelsey Mitchell lit up the perimeter. Odyssey Sims shredded their bench. And the Fever, a team labeled as rebuilding, now sits just one win from the finals. But Vegas, they want you to believe the refs staged it. Let's circle back to AA Wilson's comments, because at this point they're almost comedy routines. She said something like, "We foul sometimes, sure, but the number of fouls called was interesting." Interesting. That was her word. Translation, we fouled nonstop, but I don't like how obvious the refs made it look. Imagine being a superstar gifted whistles year after year, only to act stunned when the calls don't come with a bow. It's like a celebrity whining that their free VIP pass didn't work one random night. Sorry, AA, but sometimes the regular rules apply. And let's actually break down the defense. AA had zero answer for Aaliyah Boston. None. Boston went straight at her, straight through her, and straight over her. That's why the fouls piled up. Not because of favoritism, but because AA couldn't hold her ground without smacking her arm or hip-checking her in the lane. That's not crooked refs. That's called getting worked. And then there's Becky Hammond's press conference, a true masterclass in deflection. She literally stared at reporters and said, "They shot 34 free throws. We shot 11. Next question. No talk of defensive adjustments. No talk of Boston's footwork. No talk of Kelsey Mitchell's shot making. Nope. Just the refs. It's the laziest storyline in sports. When you lose, blame the stripes. But here's the problem. Anyone watching saw Vegas hacking like they were chopping trees. The Aces weren't disciplined. They reached, they grabbed, they swiped down. Of course the whistle blew. This isn't rocket science. You foul, you get called. That's the game. And Becky acting like it's anything else makes her look less like a Hall of Fame coach and more like the spokesperson for Vegas Excuse Factory. And let's not act like Vegas hasn't gotten breaks. Fever fans remember Game 3, when Caitlin Clark opened 1-4. One, yet couldn't by a whistle despite getting hammered on drives. That one should have been Indiana's, but refs swallowed the calls and Vegas walked away. Funny how Becky and Aya had nothing to say about officiating then. It's only when the shoe flips that their outrage gets loud, which is why this "they cheated" narrative is comical. Because if the league was fixing anything, Indiana wouldn't be the pick. They'd ride with the sure thing ratings giant, the Aces. Aya is a 2-time MVP. Becky's a coaching icon. Vegas has built itself as the league's glamour brand. If rigging was real, you'd make sure the champs advanced. The logic eats itself alive. Meanwhile, Indiana isn't bothered by the noise. They're too busy celebrating. Aaliyah Boston's stat line: 24 points, 14 boards, 5 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals, wasn't gifted by whistles. That was blood and sweat. Kelsey Mitchell dropping 25 wasn't courtesy of refs. That was pure skill. Odyssey Sims carving up defenders one-on-one wasn't some hidden conspiracy. That was basketball. And here's the truth Vegas won't face. Indiana beat them straight up. The Fever were tougher. The Fever were hungrier. The Fever looked like the team that wanted the finals more. And instead of tipping their caps, Vegas chose to cry foul. Literally. Now, let's pull back and see the bigger picture. This isn't just a single game. This is a power shift. For years, the WNBA's elite were the Aces, the Liberty, the Mercury, the same names over and over. Indiana, they were supposed to be rebuilding. Young, promising, but not ready to dethrone giants. Then Caitlin Clark arrived, paired with Aaliyah Boston's rise, and everything flipped. Now, in year 2 of Clark's career, Indiana stands one step from the finals. And that's what really shakes Vegas. Because this was never about refs. It's about ego. The Aces are used to being the hammer, used to entering arenas and owning the spotlight. But suddenly, they're watching the Fever steal the story. Clark, even from the sidelines, is still the league's brightest name. Boston is outshining Aya Wilson. Kelsey Mitchell is outdueling Jackie Young. The Fever are flipping the hierarchy. And the Aces hate it. And when egos bruise, excuses come. Whining comes. Conspiracies about crooked refs start rolling. It's easier than admitting you got outplayed. But the fans aren't buying it. Social media lit up after the game. Fever fans roasted Aya for whining about free throws when she's been gifted more whistles than anyone alive. Neutral fans pointed out Boston earned her calls by attacking, while Aya floated with jumpers. Even some Vegas fans admitted their team looked flat and deserved the loss. That's the thing with excuses. They sound fine in the locker room, but under the bright lights of public opinion, they fall apart. Now, let's be real. The refs aren't spotless. The WNBA's officiating has been trash all season. Missed calls, weird whistles, texts for nothing. You name it, we've seen it. But here's the difference. The refs weren't why Vegas lost. They were inconsistent both ways. Same old story. Indiana just didn't let it shake them. They adjusted, stayed aggressive, and forced the issue. Vegas folded, then cried foul. And here's what Vegas won't admit. Becky Hammond got flat out outcoached. Stephanie White unleashed Boston in the post, told her to stop drifting outside. And the damage was brutal. Vegas had no counter. Becky didn't adjust, didn't send doubles on time, didn't rotate, and left her exposed. That's not refs. That's coaching. But did Becky own that? Nope, just excuses. So let's run it back. Aya Wilson claims there's a special whistle. Becky Hammond waves around free throw stats like a conspiracy chart. Aces fans yell corruption. And meanwhile, the scoreboard says Indiana Fever won. Las Vegas, 0 in the excuse wars. The Fever earned it. Vegas lost because they got outplayed. Period. And here's the kicker. This whining sets up Game 5 perfectly, because now all the pressure tilts to Vegas. If they lose again, the story isn't refs cheated us. The story becomes Aya Wilson and Becky Hammond got outplayed, and outcoached by a young Indiana squad. That's the legacy risk. And deep down, they feel it. That's why the excuses are pouring like water. At the end of the day, fans don't care about referee plots. They care about wins. And right now, the truth is simple. The Fever are one step from the finals, while the Aces are stuck pointing fingers. So here we are, Vegas crying, Indiana celebrating, and the league caught in between. The Fever didn't need magical whistles. They needed Boston, Mitchell, and Sims. And they delivered. If the Aces want to survive, it's time to stop blaming refs and start playing ball. Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more breakdowns.